Hello, this is Brian Foster on Kardec Radio, presenting the program Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us.
Hello, on April 1st, 2018, Easter Sunday. What a pleasure it is to bring this program to you on this Easter Sunday for Spiritism. And again, we are on Kardec Radio Facebook page. You can listen to us on Kardec Radio on the app that you can get on your Android or your Apple phone, or you can listen to us here on Kardec Radio Facebook. You can also listen to these talks and see the Facebook page on my YouTube channel. You can go to my website, nwspiritism.com. You can see on the right-hand side, this is the YouTube channel. You can see all of our Facebook pages. As far as my Facebook pages, I say Facebook live streaming pages on YouTube. We are starting. Hello, and I see someone already on. Good evening, Teresa. This is all about Spiritism. And this all starts with the Spirits book. Allan Kardec. Anyone who's interested, when I talk about things tonight, I would recommend you start with the Spirits books by Allan Kardec. Again, on my website, nwspiritism.com. It's right here on below me. You can click on his face up on the upper right-hand corner, and you'll see by all the books by the EDICEI bookstore, all his books, Chico Xavier's books, etc. Yvonne Pierre, and then Rosalind's also on. Thank you, Rosalind. So tonight we are talking about the higher education in the spirit world. And what I have done is I've categorized a lot of information from high spirits to the Reverend G. Val Owen. And it's all in the Spirits in the Spirit Universe. Book 2 of Spiritism, the Spirit World Revealed to an Anglican Vicar. And the vicar was the Reverend G. Val Owen, a very special person who was alive and talking to the spirits, communicating with the spirits in the early 1900s. And so this is, and what I want to bring with this is, and what I believe that G. Val Owen brings that other spiritist writers haven't, is he gives a more fuller information about the higher levels of heaven. And tonight, of course, we're talking about the higher education of heaven. But first, I wanted to go through a story that I read in the book, and it was a communication of Reverend G. Val Owen's book from The Life Beyond the Veil in the Lowlands of Heaven section. And it was a communication to Reverend G. Val Owen from his mother in the spirit world. And the importance of this education, of this message, is that you can't just rise in the spirit world by improving one aspect of your character or being knowledgeable. You have to really improve in all areas. And this is what she was talking about. She was helping a spirit, a man who had recently passed over and was wandering in the lower levels of heaven. And the lost soul thought he was alone. But in fact, his guardian angel walked behind him. So following on his journey, the guardian angel knew the man possessed good traits and strived for the light, but he had certain hardness of heart, which precluded him from fully seeing all the aspects of heaven. And as the man approached a small celestial colony, one of the spirits came over to him to see if he could be of help to the soul with a perplexed look on his face. And as a kind assistant walked towards the lost man, the man's guardian sent him, through mental telepathy, that's how spirits work, facts about who was the wanderer he was approaching. And in the message to G. Val Owen from his mother, the spirit who started the conversation, we'll call him A, and then the wandering spirit, they called him B. And so the spirit who met him, because he was told about him, he was in the celestial colony, he was told about him, and he saw this wandering saint, and he goes up to him and goes, "You seem to be not very familiar with this region. Can I help you in any way?" And the wandering lost soul says, "I don't think so, although it's kind of you to offer so." And then the spirit says, "Now, look, your difficulty is one which we might deal with here, but not so thoroughly as we would like to." And the man answered, "I'm afraid you don't know what that difficulty is." And the guy said, "Well, partly I think you are perplexed because you have not met any of your friends here and wonder why." And the lost soul said, that is so, certainly." And then he answered, "But they have met you. And then the man said, well, I have not seen them. I have been wondering where I could find them. It seems strange. I've always thought that our friends were very first to meet us when we passed over, and I cannot understand it all. And then the guy said, but they did meet you. Because I didn't see anyone I knew. Well, that is quite correct. They met you, and you did not know them, would not know them. And the man answered, I don't understand. So the kind spirit said this, what I mean is this, when you came over here, you were immediately taken charge of by your friends, but your heart, good in some respects and even enlightened, was hard and blindly obstinate in others. And this is the reason you did not recognize their presence. Then the guy said, well, what's wrong with me then? Everybody I meet is kind and happy, and yet I don't seem to be able to join any party or to find my own proper place. What is wrong with me? And the kind spirit says, the first thing you must learn is that your opinions may not be correct. I will tell you one which is at fault. To begin with, this world is not as you are trying to imagine it, a place where people are all that is good or all that is evil. They are as much as they are on earth. Another thing is this, your wife, who came over here some years ago, is in a higher sphere than the one in which you will be placed when you have at length got the correct perspective of things. She was not mentally your equal in earth life and is not so now, but you are on a lower plane than she is on general lines in all things considered. That is the second thing you have to accept, and accept ex animal, which means you accept it now. You do not accept it as I can see by your face. You will have to do before you can advance. When you have done so, then you will probably be able to communicate with her. At present, that is not possible. So, when the kind spirit told the lost soul that he must accept the fact that he is on a lower plane than his wife, and he must take that deep into his heart, he presented to all of us one of the eternal truth of ascending into heaven. It is not entirely how smart, how clever, how quick you are that counts. It is also your capacity for empathy, kindness, service towards others, and in other words, the amount of love you possess in your heart. True love, love which transcends family ties, race, class, or prejudices of any type. You must cultivate your emotional and intellectual talents equally. Now, I know this is, amazing to people. When I was younger, to me, I was just completely intellectual. I tried to be as rational as possible and not improve my emotional wisdom at all. But that was wrong. Higher spirits combine the two. When one is predominant over the other, then the next life may emphasize the development of the weaker attribute, whereas the man in question, who is intellectually gifted, may be directed to live his next life in humble surroundings, so he may learn to increase his spiritual quotient. Lessons may be put before him to teach the need for faith and love. So as spirits travel through one stage after the next, they are expected to successfully pass courses to learn new skills. In the lower level, the Reverend Jivao's mother spoke about her and a group of spirits learning to use their minds to create a statue of an elephant. At first they tried, they failed miserably. She also mentioned different colleges, one to examine the effect of colors, another to create new music and sounds, which would be processed in the spheres above and then sent back down to inspire humans. In higher levels, not merely inanimate objects may be created, but life as well, all by thought. The spirit Zabdiel, who told Jivao that each sphere had its system of small colonies or towns, which first welcomed new arrivals from the lower spheres, and then would feed those spirits to larger centers as their skills increased. A lot like the world we live in, right? You go in smaller colleges, satellite colleges, and you finally go to a higher and higher college. The Zabdiel provides us with the need to balance our focus in our development. When Zabdiel was on a watchtower in the upper regions of the 10th level heavens, he learned about a colony in the lower area of the 10th sphere. He was curious about the small settlement. And so this shows you how we need to be well-rounded. To him, it seemed well organized and somewhat different from the other settlements in the area. He asked his guide on the watchtower about the colony and was told that some spirits who have reached the 10th level have experienced difficulty in that they have not yet progressed in all of the heavenly sciences as they should have. Zabdiel then explained more in detail the Reverend Jivao, and this is what he said. There are some who progress evenly in all the faculties, which are theirs, but others do not develop all their faculties equally along their way of progress. These, nonetheless, are very highly developed spirits and come to the 10th sphere in due course. But they had developed their neglected powers in the same proportion as others. They would have arrived here much earlier. Moreover, arrived here, they are just at such an altitude that what served in the spheres behind them will serve no more in the future. They must henceforth become more equalized in their faculties and so of more equal balance. The problem which gave rise to the establishment of that settlement was no other than this. And they were abide doing their work of help to others and self-training the while. You may wonder wherein the difficulty. If you do so wonder, that is by reason of a much more complex perfection of the conditions here prevailing that is in the case with you. This is all a quote by Sabdiel. I'll carry on. It arises from the fact that these people are really of the 10th sphere in some proportion of the character, and of perhaps the 11th or 12th in other proportion. And the difficulty is this. They are in some ways too large in power and personality for their present environment, and yet unable to proceed into the next sphere, where their inferior parts would suffer damage and catastrophe would ensure, which would probably throw them backwards many spheres behind, where they would be as ill at ease as ever. So this gives us a lot of interesting information of how we must balance ourselves. We don't come to Earth to be an intellectual giant, to be an Einstein. Our main focus here is really to correct our character and our attitude. So Zabdal goes on to tell Jivaoan that the colony works by spirits who are superior in one area help those who are deficient in the same subject, whereas those receiving help may be at an advanced level in another that their teacher or other spirits require. So the colony organizes itself to provide each with what is needed. And what else could we expect of a group of spirits who are altruistic and trained to be supportive of each other? This is the genius of God's system. By allowing free will, the freedom to take our time to advance, God created a system of each individual retaining their singularity while ensuring overall goodness in each. Well, on Earth, every supposed method of promoting goodness or sameness resulted in concentration camps and mass murders, right? Because these fascist or communist dictators wanted, they just eliminated the people who are different. Whereas in the spirit world, we are completely trained and risen, and it's all by our free will. It's all done by ourselves and motivating by ourselves by seeing what is ahead of us. And in the spirit world, life is sacred, free will is sacred, and is not to be violated. So I thought that would be very interesting. I want to make sure people understand the well-roundedness we need to be when we are a high spirit. Now, I also want to tell something about a message that was given to Reverend Jivaoan, and this was the Spirit Arnel. This is very interesting because in this message, and it was in Life Beyond the Veil, the Battalions of Heaven section, he talks about two individuals, and they were actually progressing on Earth. And Arnel says this. He says that they were progressing Earth before Atlantis and Lemuria rose to power, and that they were two young individuals who stood out from the primitive tribesmen of their day. And when they passed away to the other side, their excellence was recognized, and they were trained for eons until they knew enough to lead the destiny of another planet. And what Arnel is describing is the ceremony that sent off this pair of spirits delivered to the Reverend Jivaoan from the Spirit Arnel. And of course, this ceremony took place on the 10th level of heaven in the temple that touched the border of the 11th sphere of heaven. But first, let me go back. So we had hints of Atlantis and Lemuria. In fact, there's like a note in the book On the Way to the Light. And there's also been hints that the whole human race, because we had advanced technologically much higher than our moral and spiritual behavior, that the whole human race was saying, okay, no, we're going back. We're going to take your technology away and get to restart again. It's like a whole class. It's like a whole class misbehaved, and they said, oh, sorry, you're going to have to start this whole year over again. You were not doing very well. This is what's happened multiple times And according to other people, they said it's happened more than 2 or 3 times. So interesting. There's a lot of our history we don't know. And so this was extremely exciting to read about 2 humans who were actually ascending, probably why we were still a primitive planet, even before Atlantis and Lemuria rose to power. Who knows how many thousands of years that was. So first, Arnell described the throng of onlookers present at the ceremony to send off the 2 leaders. So this was, I don't know what, in what year this was according to the Earth time, but Arnell was describing this in the early 1900s. This could have been beforehand or whatever. But of course, think about how long it took for those 2 people who were there in primitive state. Probably I've heard from Edgar Casey, right? He says Atlantis was starting around 50,000 years ago. So they were probably before that, maybe 100,000 years ago. This kind of shows you the length of time it takes for some people to really rise. It's a long process. So don't be discouraged. Just take our time. So he's describing the ceremony, and he said that the group is there to send off the 2 leaders on a mission on a primitive planet, as Earth was before we were a planet of atonement. And he said the multitude was like the cells of a body, for they're all in harmony with each other. And as the people stood ready, a cloud appeared overhead. And he said there's a cloud was green tint and streaked with spirals of amber within itself. He said it was just a beautiful ceremony. And then they could feel the whole cloud. It was like pulsing with life, and there was just this beautiful feeling about it. And it was all created by the thoughts of the band of angels making ready to depart to heavenly spheres circling the earth. So then he tells us about the 2 people that were there, because the first was a woman, and this is what he said: this chariot came upon this beautiful cloud and light. And then within the chariot, there emerged into sight of us a beautiful young woman. She was facing us, and I noted all her loveliness. And as I looked upon her, I saw nothing else for the exceeding beauty of her. Her beauty was of a tint you do not know. I'll call it amber. But it was not the same tone as the amber of the pillars, but more of a radiance and transparency. And yet was an aspect of reality and permanency which those wanted. She wore a robe of blue gossamer, but where it covered her body, the 2 hues blended and became a delicate green. On her arms were bands of purple metal. She wore upon her hair a small cap of deep red, with a thin band of white and gold, and her hair was brown with a sheen of orange upon it, as if it was touched by a ray of the sun at setting time. And her eyes were deep purple and blue. And Arnell called her kind of a mother queen, a maidenhood, a spirit brooding over a race of people. And to her, she was this mother, vision and example, but she also showed like a call to action. Her very presence made others feel a sense of urgency of purpose, while simultaneously she radiated a peaceful and calming feeling that provided focus to whatever task her tenants would be given. The aura she possessed is only possible by thousands of years of experience, training, dedication. This mother queen began, as did we, in ignorant spirit, but using her innate humility, openness to criticism, native intelligence, she rose to a great height. Her ability to always combine love, wisdom, and kindness placed her as a natural choice to guide the evolution of intelligent life on a primitive planet. After her came a young man into the hall. And this is what he said about him. He was the woman in masculine duplicate. One was the complement and counterpart of the other. In only one thing did he seem dissimilar. His robe was of slightly ruddier tint. I did not notice aught else of moment to mark one from the other. Even sex was expressed rather in spirit than bodily. I'll bet in form she was emphatically woman and he man. So imagine, just think about them. Imagine the feelings of Christopher Columbus, Leif Erikson, or Zhang He as they took off for unknown lands, whereas they would encounter new territories, new people, new vegetation. Our 2 spirits would take part in husbanding a new race on a planet in the early stages of evolution. This, my friends, is what is awaiting for you. This is the motivation for us to improve ourselves, for us to take the time to study Spiritism, to understand the organization of the spirit world, to understand how we must change ourselves, to meditate, to study, to be at one with the spirit world, and understand how we must rewire our thoughts and our brains so we can do these exciting things. Now, Arnell then describes kind of in more detail what they were expected to do. This is what he said. They had come to head a company of those who had been prepared in that temple and its environment and lead them forth on in prize of a large conception and requiring much ability and power for its furtherance. This was that they should take their way to a planet which was just at the stage of evolution where intellect was beginning to realize itself and to raise itself into distinct order out of the brute towards the man. But it would not eventuate in a man such as the Earth type is, but not very dissimilar and in essentials identical. This company was to take up the work of guidance in the process of this race, just at this stage. They would not take over their task in its entirety, nor at once. This would be their first visit to those high creative princes who had brought the planet to its present crisis. They would return from time to time hitherward for rest and counsel. They would return in part, leaving some of their numbers to carry on the work, to be relieved by others of them after rest. And so gradually the affairs of that planet would be gathered up entirely into their hands. And the while, in this sphere and some other spheres, other bands supplementary are being trained to join them when the time shall be that the race is expanding and evolving to what stage shall require more numerous guardians and rectors at the helm of that ship, as it sails the broad spaces of the heavens on its way from mist to substance and to living creatures and to intelligence. And as I will say for you on earth, from aminality through human sort to Godhead. So, in one long paragraph, Arnell succinctly described the evolution of all living planets in our universe, including Earth. Let me talk about an example in the book On the Way to the Light, dictated to Francisco C. Xavier, the great spiritist medium. By the Spirit Emmanuel, we are told that the Earth was deliberately formed for the express purpose to use our planet as a place to incarnate spirits. The master of the entire operation, from setting our planet into orbit, the creation of the moon, manufacturing the ozone layer to protect all organic forms, to the beginning of life until today, and of course beyond, is Christ. And Christ was chosen by God and maybe other higher lords to be the Lord of earth. Jesus set forth the blueprint and utilized the divine laws to construct an inhabitable oasis where humans could evolve and thrive. So if you look at these two examples of humans that started off on the planet Earth, and then you see Christ, and then the book On the Way to the Light lets us in at really what happened at the beginning of the life on Earth. And the Spirit Emmanuel says, like modern engineering, which constructs a building foreseeing the tiniest requirements for ultimate purpose, the artist from the spirit realm built the realm of cells, initiating in primeval days the construction of organized, intelligent forms of centuries to come. So yes, there is evolution, but it's a guided evolution. The spirits will subtly change DNA and other factors, create maybe huge catastrophes, etc., to guide evolution to where they want it to go. And where do they want the Earth to go? They wanted, just like this other primitive planet, to create life. So we have the form in which our spirits can exist into, so we can learn from a planet of a primitive world to where we are now, a planet of atonement. So let's talk more about higher education. This kind of gives you the background of why we're here, what we're trying to learn. So in the spirit world, in the 10th level, there is a university called the University of Five Towers. And Spirit 10 is the level where spirits are still learning about their world and how it functions. It is the ultimate sphere for analyzing the present scope of the spirit universe around Earth. So as we start out, of course, many of us, I think, I forgot the percentage, but, the majority of us either go to the lower sphere or the dark abyss, which is a purgatory-like area, which of course no one is there forever. There's no such thing as eternal punishment. There is not, actually God does not punish. The spirit world educates us. Every trial we go through is for our own edification. So sphere 10 is very high level, where people have gone from heaven higher and higher and higher through the first spheres. And of course, as I said before, this numbering level is just used by the spirits who talk to the Reverend G. Valen, just to show them the differentiation. Other spirits have talked to other mediums, can give you a different stage. So Arnell described the G. Valen, a university built on a great plain in the 10th sphere. And it was a city and stuff. It was like a college town, right? It had lakes and forests, and it consisted of a dome, a great tower, and 4 towers. And this is how Arnell explained the function of each tower. He said the 4 towers have each a group of buildings of their own. I can't give you their names, but you may write them down as the Tower of Sleeping Life, which you would call mineral. Notice how everything has life, right? This is, again, and this is even the book from Allan Kardec, Genesis, where everything is vibrations, right? Everything has life. But now we're hearing through G. Valen kind of another aspect, another point of view. So the first tower is Tower of Sleeping Life, mineral. The Tower of Dreaming Life, which you would call vegetable. The Tower of Walking Life, which you would call animal. And the Tower of Consciousness, which you would call human. So I believe, these names are significant because everything around us is actually alive, right? The stones, the flowers, the walls of our house. Not that they are living according to our definition, but they are living because they have been fashioned by the wills of great and high spirits. They are living because they've been formed with universal fluid, which is the building block of all creations. And you can learn about universal fluid in Allan Kardec's book, Genesis, and other books by Chico Xavier. And that is the fundamental building block of everything, from mineral to our physical bodies. Everything is fashioned out of a primal element. And only the vibration, the density, and the patterns are modified to create everything. And everything is held into place by a force of will, by some high spirit. Will supplied by a spirit, of course, much greater than we. And it is this created universe that is studied by the university, because in those levels from 10 down to the first level of heaven, you're not there to create, you're not there to actually add, you're there more like you're going to a university to learn the process, right? It's like you're an architect and you're going to architectural school. You're not going to be allowed to build anything until you graduate. It's the same thing with all these levels of heavens. So I know this could be discouraging to some people because we're on earth to fix our character and rewire our thoughts. And then when we're in heaven, and of course we'll keep reincarnating as we go up there, we're also there. We have to learn more and more. But get used to it. You are an immortal soul. Your life is going to be an eternal quest of learning and understanding more and more. That's why it's very important to have a lot of intellectual curiosity, because if you enjoy that, if you enjoy learning new things, you are going to love and be successful in heaven. So Arnell goes on to describe the other, the other buildings. The great tower is the tower of angelic life, which watches over all those forms of life below it in degrees of progress, and also crowns them all. For towards the angelic orders, all the lower creation is moving. These towers serve by the house of the dome, and to it they turn for any specific item of knowledge they need in their work of research and classification. On the powers generated within the dome house, they rely to help them in that matter. And according to Arnell, all the buildings have a mystical significance. Their very layout and pattern of edifices represent the stages of creation. The great tower is in itself a complex and multi-layered structure. He describes the great tower as this. He was built of double walls, and on all 4 sides are rooms and halls and dwelling places of angels. So you gaze aloft, you see here a doorway, and there a balcony or a hanging window, or a bridge will shoot from one dwelling to another in a curve outward over space and inward again to its destination. So there's just this very beautiful, intricate building that goes high and high and high. And it has all these spaces so you can see the sky above. So it must be magnificent to behold, But what's amazing, it was who lives in it. And this great tower supervises the work of the other four, and the dome draws there the power required for its work. And there are angels reside there of great rank and come and go from very high realms to give of their mighty strengths and far-flung experience. This is from Arnell. Those whose abode is in the four towers, the dome house, are doing in their present eternity what themselves did in eternities bygone, where denizens have passed on in the cycle of progress and left their place to be possessed by the present race. So when Arnell speaks of eternities, we should begin to grasp the scope of where we are and where we are going. The entire system of planets to promote spirits is one of sending wave after wave of spirits up the ladder of education and knowledge, where no one advances without purity of heart combined with learning. We may toil in college after college in the spheres of our local heaven until we look down and no longer recognize the service of the earth, and still not yet attain citizenship in the vast university of the five towers. Or we may leap upwards in constant intellectual devotion and emotional ecstasy. It's all up to us. It's all up to our motivation, and it's up to our discipline. And spirits who have graduated the 10th sphere and entered in the path of creation. What exactly that means, I do not yet fathom. But Jesus is reported to live at the 15th level, and he helped form the solar system and the planets which we lived in. And those wise and learned spirits come back to help those who are still striving to improve themselves. Such altruistic behavior should come as no surprise, for their very desire to be of service is what helped them achieve their angelic status. Immortality gives us the opportunity to engage in whatever intellectual pursuit we find most interesting. Physical death is nothing except a re-entry back into a universe of infinite variation. Each life is but one of the sequences of advancement. Use it to shape your character, remove your pride and selfishness, and prepare yourself for great opportunities. Now, so that is interesting. So let me take a quick break here so because I'm talking for a half an hour. So I'm hoping what this does is to really expose, and this is a gift. So this is what Spiritism has done. So remember what Allan Kardec told us in the Spirits book is that the first revelation is Moses, and that first revelation is one where, and if you look at the Old Testament, is they talk to the people at the time throughout the whole thousands of years as the Old Testament was gathered in the manner that they needed to, right? They kind of give directives. You will do this, you will do that, and if not, you're going to be punished. A lot of it, the Old Testament sounds cruel to us, right? And if you've seen other, things, but that was the type of people that they had to talk to at the time. Then the New Testament came, and then Christ gave us the concept of love and the kingdom of heaven and forgiveness. But not all was opened up, right? They still talked about some things. We'd say, well, we should love everyone. And an example, let's say a marriage between a man and woman, that was, they've talked about that a lot in the New Testament. Now, then comes the third revelation, which was created, codified, I should say, by Allan Kardec. And how was that revelation created? What he did, he became interested in talking to spirits. He was not a medium himself, but he was at medium meetings. So he created a list of 1,019 questions, and he sent those questions to mediums throughout Europe. And unless he got the same or similar answer, he did not codify them in his book, the Spirits book. Now, I said before, you can get this on the EDICI website or Amazon.com. You can also put in Allan Kardec's name and put in PDF, and you'll find all his books in PDF form. That's how I found them. And then in this third revelation, they tell us more. And why did they tell us more? Why are they telling us more and changing their approach? Because the human race is technologically, socially, and culturally ready to hear these extra messages. And unlike, what I like to do is have people is to learn is that the information coming from the spirit world is dynamic, and it may change and it will tell us more and more as we progress. So what was told Allan Kardec, then if you start reading what it was told G. Vale Owen, or told Divaldo Franco, or Chico Xavier, there's more and more being revealed all the time. That is because we are able to process it. So this is what the spirit world is telling us. We will always be getting more and new information. It's not like, okay, I would like to caution people, and of course, if you don't believe that, that's fine, is that it's not like the Old or New Testament is the Word of God and that is it. No, it's that we will be told more and more as we advance and we're able to process information. As an example, in the Spirits book, right? They asked, what is marriage? And what did the Spirits book, what was the answer by the Spirits? Between two spirits. They didn't say a man and a woman. They said between two spirits. And they said, okay, does the spirit always come back as a man or a woman? They said, no, it comes back as they choose, or as the circumstances warrant it. So already here in 1850s, which is, now you can understand why the Catholic Church actually burned this book, is it shows that, hey, people who love each other, it doesn't make a difference what their predilections are. So this I think hopefully this shows you the continual evolution of what we learn as we reincarnate on Earth. We're told more and more that we can handle it. Now the other thing is I want to go into, on March 11th, 1918, is Arnell started talking about the creative hierarchies. And he was talking about, okay, how does creation work? And to me, this was an amazing part of the book. And this is what he said. He was on this 10th level. He wasn't the 11th level yet. He eventually was promoted there. And he went and he visited like this manifestations, right, of how things were created. And it was like a convention, it was like a show to show these students, this is what you're going to be achieving. Keep working. This is what you're going to be achieving. And he went to this whole exposition of different creation of things above the 10th level. And he said he went to, he went to like street after street, broad avenues of great length. And they were laid out in great orders of creation. But they weren't that dissimilar from one to the other. They were divisions, but they were in themselves departments, and they were blending from one to the other. And as they walked down, they were struck by the fact that certain principles in all the creation were observed by all the creative princes loyally. And what he said is these principles were essentially the same, whether they applied to mineral or vegetable or animal life. So what was that principle? This is what's interesting. The principle is the theme of the spiral. So what's a spiral, right? It goes like this. That's a spiral, or like this. And this was the central theme. And this is his quote. When we went down one avenue, how worlds were made. On the left hand as we went, we saw how the thought of God, vibrating and pulsing outward, became by degrees of denser element until it issued in what you would call ether. So here we consider ether to be very delicate and almost not there. But it just shows you how it started with the thought of God became denser just to be ether. Here we were able to notice the nature of the movement, and we saw that it was spiral, but that as any certain wave reached the top of the spiral, it continued its course by a descent, also of spiral form, but now within the atom of ether, so that the inner spiral, having a more constricted space to work in, the descent was of greater speed than that of the outer spiral. Emerging from the lower end of the atom at a greater increased velocity, the vibrations were able of their own momentum to continue again their outer course upwards, but a rate of movement ever a little slower until the top was reached and the descent began anew interiorly with ever gathering velocity. These atoms were not round, nor were they true oval, but by reason of the ceaseless movement within themselves, elliptic. The motive of power of their self-contained motion was a gravitational pressure exerted from without. And if we could have chased it to its source, I think we would have found that the dynamo from which proceeded was the mind of God. You will note that I used the word top and bottom, up and down, for convenience only. There is no top or bottom to an atom of ether. So here we have, via a spiral elliptical motion with different speeds of rotation around within a tiny building block, Arnell saw the power of God. And what was the source of the gravitational pressure to maintain the spinning of the element? Was it God, or was it the thought or will of a high spirit? It could be that one of the methods of how high creative spirits mold and keep in place of their momentous creations. And there are many questions one could ask to dive deeper into what Arnell saw. But we should realize we won't be spoon-fed scientific breakthroughs. That's our task, to discern the secrets of our natural laws. So, can we compare what was told to Jiva and what we know today? So it's difficult to adequately summarize what is known about the atom and the cycling of electrons around the nucleus without going into too much detail. But suffice to say that it originally thought by Bohr and others that electrons orbit around a nucleus in a circular manner, but is now thought to be more of an elliptical journey, just like our Earth is around the sun. Bohr first came out with this circular motion in 1913. This messages from Jiva Owen was in about the 1911s and 1920. Actually, this one was in 1918. So Bohr and Rutherford first came up with this theory in 1913. Subsequent theories since then about the items, respective neutrons, protons, and electrons, have seen these elements broken down into even smaller subatomic principles. All the above is only important in context as to what Arnell told Jiva Owen about his observation of creation in 1918. Therefore, what was revealed wasn't a new theory, but one that can be certain that only a small coterie of people knew about the theory when Jiva Owen received his communication. And Arnell specifically described an elliptical path as opposed to a circular orbit. Very interesting. So, I mean, and you'll be amazed if you read even Genesis and talking about how the different dimensions, and then how string theory is actually showing us, is proving there's different dimensions. Many things were subtly revealed even way back in 1850. So next, Arnell took the basic design of the ethereal atom and compared it to what we have in the physical universe. He says, now I describe this to you in order that it may form a model for you when you pursue the atom of ether into other substances of denser sort. When we came to those atoms which form the gases of your Earth's atmosphere, we found that they also had a like motion. So what he's saying is everything kind of had a like motion. It was a spiral motion. And then he said that both the mass and also the density of a unit affect the rate of velocity. The speed of the movement of their atoms is slower in those planets which have attained to more density than in others. But even in these, the rule holds good that the interior movement is quicker than that of the outer surface, which drags after it very slowly. So, we live in a dense universe. We live on a planet of atonement. And as we pass over the spirit world, we become less dense. And as we ascend, we become more energy and less matter. But our planet remains the same. But does it? Arnell hints that the complete universe of Earth, the whole world's density could be less than other worlds. And does he mean the difference between the Earth and the planet Jupiter, which is a gas giant, versus our planet with a crust and a molten core? Or does he refer to a whole different state? And so, what he's telling us is that as the Earth moves to a planet of regeneration, the whole planet will become less dense. And the Spirit's book tells us that as souls are incarnated on higher level planets, happy worlds, or humans are lighter and glide as they walk. It may be that not only our spirit is transformed by ascending to another level, but when our planet Earth transforms, it will also be less dense. And imagine what we're told of happy worlds, the level after a planet regeneration, 2 steps up from where we reside presently. We still retain our human form, although the senses are more acute. As described in the Gospel according to Spiritism by Allan Kardec, The specific lightness of the body enables rapid and easy locomotion. Instead of dragging itself laboriously over the ground, it glides, so to speak, over the surface or sails through the air with no other effort other than that of the will in the way in which angels are portrayed. So all of this tells us that as our planet ascends, there will be less density in ourselves. Now, not only is matter transformed by these spirals in this matter, but the culture and society. So politically on such worlds is different, right? And so this is what he so even as the history of our world is, notice that we go through spirals, right? I talked about at the start of this talk about is Lemuria, Atlantis, where people rose up, went down. But the spiral made is that each time something was destroyed, it wasn't went back to where it started. It was created with a more firm foundation. So then Arnell described what he found when he was able to learn about the beginnings of the spirit universe. So this is what he said. We found that the great lords of creation began their work farther back than the etheric atom and nearer the origin of all. Still, those who deal with the etheric evolution and onward are very great and ancient lord. We therefore went forward to study these vibrations of thought power, where they were more retarded by the density of the material in which they were moved. And we found that one of the most difficult tasks we students had ahead of us was to think and to will in the proper way. For to deal with matter creatively, the first thing to master is to think in spirals. I cannot further explain this to you, but it is the most difficult habit to achieve, to think spirally. So what do we know today? The Big Bang Theory postulates that everything in our universe can be traced back to a single point, a point of an extremely high energy density, which is comparable to what Arnell said. And this is what he said. They were retarded by the density of the material in which they moved. So did the great lords of creation use that homogeneous material to create all other matter of the universe? From the description given by Arnell, it seems that they did. What is even more interesting is the necessity to think spirally. What does this mean? How does one apply spiral thinking? And most of us think in a problem-solving context. We analyze a problem, we think of a solution, and then devise a path to get to our objective. But to understand spiral thinking, it may be helpful to consider software. So when applications aren't an end to itself, software applications are a process, a procedure to get what you want or where you wish to go. Software starts out with defects, but over time, the defects are repaired and the entire process flows more smoothly and more efficiently. Over time, it's called dynamism for software, is as people want more features and things are changed, the software itself changes. So what I believe is what Arnell meant by spiral thinking is like the setting up of a self-repairing or a self-generating process that makes forward motion and advancement toward a goal and then circles back to fix any errors in the attainment of that objective. And the system could go on and on. If you think about the whole history of our Earth, this is what we've been doing. Spiral thinking could explain all of our discovered natural laws. We live in a cosmos of self-generating life, where planets form and are destroyed, then form again out of the resulting cosmic dust, where life depends upon the destruction of other lives, where we travel through one life only to be cleansed of our defects in the next life. We too go through spirals, right? We reincarnate. One life we're as dumb as a rock. We are reset into harder trials. We may learn something. We rise, and then somehow we do something wrong, and then we have to go through much harder trials again. But then it helps us. So it's truly this whole system of created by God is amazing, and it explains so much, and explains why we are here. So I think in the education in the higher level of heavens, eyes are open as one travels upwards. Possibilities never imagined are presented and dissected. The power of the will, the full force of faith, is discussed and analyzed. So as one ascends higher, one begins to realize our earthly concept of God, our history, our solar system, our evolution was in error. We believe what we were told because that is the easier, more comfortable path. But as soon as one begins at the lower levels and moves ahead, the hidden story starts to be in focus. The entire evolution of Earth, all life on the planet, has been guided from the start. How even the smallest details are arranged and tracked in the lesson plans of the higher spheres of heaven. Nothing is accomplished without a reason. Spirits in lower planes and us on Earth can't detect the method or the purpose of events, but they all begin to make sense the higher one goes. And with this knowledge is added insights into the process, procedure, rules, and customs of the spirit realm. A fuller understanding of how the spirit universe operates is supplied, given to us by all this knowledge given to and taught to the spirit Reverend G. Val Owen. There's so much in his book. It is just exciting to really understand. And you read, if you can read his books, and then along with Allan Kardec's books, and then some of Chico's books, as far as, let's say, the whole Andre Louise series, this whole how the spirit world operates is just because it gets more and more understandable. And the spirits are trained to use the additional capabilities given them to focus their minds. So as you rise up, you're given more capabilities. As I said before, when you graduate from one level to another, you're not given a piece of paper only. You're actually giving more attributes, more power. You're given more power because you can handle more power. Because why? Because you're controlling your mind better. That's why we on Earth, we have to learn not only control our mouth, we have to control our thoughts. And spirits are trained to use the additional capabilities that are given to them to focus their minds, to query after vital data, and to communicate with experts in time of need, all prerequisites for what comes next. The base of knowledge required to begin to spawn evolution of plant life, animals, and human-like progress over millions and billions of years is supplied. It's our first levels of heaven are just like a graduate degree, where intimate understanding of the concepts and the opportunity to work beside leading people in their fields provides the breadth of knowledge required to step up and begin a doctorate degree. The 10th sphere and below in heaven is one of preparation. Above it, instead of writing papers that illustrate your grasp of important concepts, you actually begin to expand the base of knowledge and invent. The act of creation is what awaits above the 10th level of heaven. So I hope this excites people, is that isn't this truly heaven? Isn't this much more exciting than saying you die, you sprout wings, and you live on this, this plane where, you're on the beach and, you're drinking, you're drinking your drink with the umbrella in it for all eternity. Imagine, even in the Spirit's book, they said, that would be, if you were releasing planes where you did nothing, that would really be hell, because you would get bored of that, right? So this is trying to show you, I'm trying to present to you through these talks on the Kardec Radio, Kardec Facebook page, my blog site, YouTube channel. There's other YouTube channels out there. There's many great people on the Kardec Radio Facebook giving you streaming. There's always good information coming out of Kardec Radio on your Android or iOS device. And if you want Kardec Radio, just put in Kardec Radio, and you can load that up for free. 24 hours a day, information on Spiritism. And what I'm hoping that I can convey to you is, if the more you learn about Spiritism, you learn about why we're on Earth. You learn about what is ready for us. You learn about why are we given the trials we are given. Why do all these things have to happen to us, right? Why is that person bothering me? Well, I got news for you. That person who is bothering you is there for a reason. That person is there for a reason to make you go up to the next level. Almost nothing, and some people say absolute nothing, but I kind of believe that almost nothing happens by chance. Every person that stands in your way is there for a reason. Every person that helps you grow is there and helps you carry on to your next level of career or whatever is there for a reason. all your individual lesson plans are just meticulously planned out. And the more you intellectually and emotionally accept this, the less stressed and anxious you'll be about your life. Because all you have to do then is just keep concentrating on doing your best, listen to your conscience, always trying to do what you think is good, sacrifice if you need to, so you don't have to do what you think goes against your conscience, and you will succeed beyond your imagination in this life. So I hope everyone enjoyed this talk today. I know I have, especially on this Easter Sunday. It's so exciting to give more information to people and to to present what the Reverend G. Vallon did. And of course, at the end, I want to tell everybody that the reason that I read the Reverend G. Vallon books is because he was actually cited in the book of Voltaire, and it was one of the books psychographed by Chico Xavier. And so, if you want to see that yes, he is part of the Spiritist pantheon of wonderful people that brought the concept of Spiritism to us on Earth, so that we can learn and improve ourselves. So I want to give everyone many blessings. I want to give everybody out there who said hi, hello for everyone. Thank you for watching the program. Please share this with your friends. Tell your friends to join Kardec Radio Facebook page. Download Kardec Radio on your Android or iOS device. Get on NW Spiritism. Join the YouTube channel. Every time I do one of these, this will also be there, because eventually these all kind of disappear from the Facebook site. But you can always see any of my talks on my YouTube channels. I upload everything. So I want to tell everybody that thank you so much for a wonderful time here, and it's just exciting that that we can get together and be on this wonderful Easter day. And now I'll put our end credits on. And Carlos, thank you. And as he said, yep, Christ has died for ours sins. Thank you.
And to point you in a direction to find more information about the spirit world around us, you can visit my blog at www.nwspiritism.com. Again, that is www.nw as in Northwest Spiritism.com. And if you are ever in the Northwest, I certainly would welcome to have you come to our meeting on Bainbridge Island near Seattle in the state of Washington. Many blessings to all of you, and please continue to explore Spiritism and the spirit world